Okay, so we'll give it another minute or so. We're still seeing folks streaming in, and we don't want them to miss the culminating session of the day. No pressure, Kim.
No pressure. Okay, and Celine, I think we've got a message. We can go ahead and get started.
Okay, sounds good. So welcome everybody, and thank you for attending the 2022 Food Justice Summit Feedback Meeting in the Middle, a collaborative effort between the Adirondack Health Institute and the Adirondack Food System Network. My name is Celine Carrier, and I am a management consultant working with Garden Share in St. Lawrence County. This session, Fair Food Pricing, Equity, and Access, is presented to you by Kim Leroux with AdkAction. So before we kick off the session, I do want to give another huge shout out to the event sponsors. So they've helped to make this year's event possible, and we truly are appreciative of their support. Thank you very much to our keynote and premier sponsors, the New York State Health Foundation and Glens Falls National Bank and Trust Company. So one last time, a few housekeeping items. We'll give you a few brief ones. During the session, you will be muted and the video will be off for the entirety of the presentation. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to place them in the chat. We really do encourage that. And one of the Food Justice Summit staff members will be able to assist you, and we'll be monitoring the chat to make sure that your questions are addressed during the Q&A portion of the presentation a little bit later. All materials, the sessions are being recorded and will be archived on the Summit webpage, available at a website, and you'll be getting some information by email as well. And lastly, we'll be sending out a survey on Friday, February 25th, as we would love to hear your feedback on the Feedback Summit. So now it's my pleasure to pass it over to Kim Leroux, who is the first food security project manager with AdkAction. So over to you, Kim.
Thank you, Celine. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so thank you, Celine, for that introduction and for facilitating our session. And of course, thank you to AHI and the Adirondack Food Systems Network for coordinating the summit. And then thank you all for joining us and giving us this opportunity to share about our fair food pricing program. And especially if you've been on sessions nonstop the last 2 days and have made it to this last one with us, we really appreciate it. So my name is Kim. I'm our food security project manager at AdkAction, and today we'll give an overview of our new fair food pricing program aimed at increasing equity and local food access, which we piloted last year. And we're going to take a closer look at one of the contexts that we implemented the program in, which was a farm share model called Fair Share. And then we're really excited to have two of our Fair Share farm partners with us. So we'll end with a panel to hear about their experiences in the program. So yeah, as mentioned, feel free to put any questions in the chat as they come up. We are fortunate to have an AmeriCorps Vista Jennifer on our team at AdkAction. So if there are questions she's able to answer, she'll go ahead and do that directly. Otherwise, we'll note them to be addressed at the end as part of our panel conversation. So just a brief introduction for those who are not familiar with AdkAction. We're a project-focused and membership-based nonprofit serving the Adirondack region. And as you can see, we work in a number of project areas. Road Salt was a project that led to our founding, and many people are familiar with us through our pollinator project. And our Compost for Good team presented yesterday. So you may have learned more about that project there. And so we do a number of different things, and food security is just one facet of our work, but it is a growing subset of what we do. And within our food security projects, we have a number of initiatives. Of course, we'll get into some today, but one exciting project to mention here is SNAP Online, where we've been helping the Hub on the Hill in Essex to become an approved vendor. And Hunger Solutions New York talked about SNAP Online some yesterday in their presentation. And if you went to the USDA website, I think they directed us to, you'll see there are only about 20 SNAP Online vendors currently approved in New York State. And they're pretty limited to big box vendors like Amazon and Walmart, especially in the North Country. So SNAP Online is coming very soon to the Hub on the Hill, and we're really excited to launch that. But anyway, as I mentioned, today we're going to focus in on fair food pricing and fair share nested within it. But to understand how we got to fair food pricing, it's important to go back to our emergency food packages project, which is a rapid response to pandemic food insecurity. And AdkAction pivoted really quickly to coordinate this with the Hub on the Hill. And from March to October, we provided 65,000 emergency meals to over 1,000 community members in Essex, Clinton, Franklin, and Hamilton counties. And so it was a fast but big operation, but very successful. And then equally important to us in addressing food insecurity was supporting our local farmers who were also taking an economic hit. So in that time, $125,000 worth of local farm products were purchased through the project. So the emergency food packages project was incredibly successful with high impact in a short time. And we recognized, however, that food insecurity existed before the pandemic and it would persist after. So we wanted to take this successful project model and transform it into one that could be longstanding to address both persistent food insecurity and local farmer viability. So in late fall 2020, we introduced fair food pricing program as a sustainable solution rather than a temporary emergency response. So there are 4 tenets of long-term need we're aiming to address. And like I mentioned, the first is really persistent food insecurity. And pre-COVID North Country food insecurity rates range from around 11% in Essex County, 13% in Clinton and Hamilton, and nearly 14% in Franklin County, which is 25% higher than the national average. And there isn't data more recent than 2019 at this moment, but it was projected that due to the pandemic, food insecurity rates would increase to 16% in our area. And again, for our project, our program coverage purposes, we're looking at Clinton, Franklin, Essex, and Hamilton counties within the Adirondacks. Second, we have barriers related to affordability and accessibility of local foods. Accessibility refers to the reality of food deserts or food apartheid, where we have lack of grocery stores in many towns. And it also relates to the transportation barriers we face in rural areas. And affordability relates to the higher cost of local foods being a significant barrier to low-income community members. Third, we have low producer incomes, which we touched on briefly in relation to the emergency food packages project. But I think long term, there can be this sort of misconception that small organic farm businesses are turning a profit much higher than reality. And the net farm income of our farmers is on average less than the national average of farm income. And so local farmers really aren't making a lot of money. They're often in the business to serve the community. So we really want to lift them up because they play a critical role in our food system and a strong food economy community. And then finally, this all fits together in our need for a strong, resilient, and equitable local food system, which means keeping food dollars local, encouraging sustainable practices both in farming technique and environmental impact in supply chains, and then, of course, as the previous mentioned, supporting farmers and ensuring participation outcomes for all community members. Okay, so now we're getting into the real stuff. So at the end of 2020, we launched Fair Food Pricing as a program working towards a future in which Adirondack farmers can feed the region and local families have affordable access to local food. And to do this, we established our Fair Food Pricing Fund using input from grants, foundations, and local donors. And having many small individual donors was important to us as it leverages community assets, but it also helps with wealth redistribution in the community. Fair food pricing at its core is a food subsidy program. So we launched it with 2 tiers. So you'll see a picture here of one of our coupons, and 30% was our standard tier, but we also had an emergency tier at 90% off. And this, as we were rolling it out, was in recognition that there was still heightened hardship from the pandemic. And, families face other unique circumstances, such as death of a primary income earner, where the base subsidy really wouldn't be enough. And so we had those 2 tiers, 30% off and 90% off for participants, but in the model, 100% of the value of the products being purchased was still directed to the farmers. So our eligibility is based off the United Way's ALICE budget, which stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. And these are households making more than the federal poverty level, but less than needed to afford a basic survival budget. And in our region, around 30% of food insecure households are ineligible for SNAP. So this means they're food insecure, but they've been excluded from that key federal nutrition assistance. And as we also heard on one of the presentations yesterday, SNAP is the largest sort of food assistance program. So we really want to leverage those dollars. So we want to make sure fair food pricing reached this vulnerable group that falls through the cracks. And we have worked with a family who is literally pennies above the SNAP threshold. And if you go to our website, you'll see we have an income eligibility calculator there, which you can see on the left. And all you have to do is input household information and the calculation factors in different budgeting needs based on the composition. And one of those that's really important is the cost of childcare. So you can see here that our income eligibility for a household of 4 is considerably higher than the SNAP threshold. And in this instance here, it's representing 200% of the poverty rate. So, so our eligibility, and then another way we're trying to catch people who are not served by existing food programs is by simplifying the enrollment process. In the North Country, 47% of households below the poverty level are not receiving federal food assistance, meaning they're eligible for it, but they're not using benefits such as SNAP. And this can be due to a number of reasons relating to stigma factors, maybe not knowing they're eligible, and thirdly, a difficult enrollment process that can be really discouraging to people. So we wanted to address those elements as much as possible in our eligibility and enrollment process. So here we do rely heavily on our referral partner network, which helps screen and direct people to our program. And we've had some referral partners, even sort of as they have appointments with clients, have taken the time there to enroll them directly while they have time one-on-one with them, which has been really awesome. And so all people have to do to enroll is follow this simple process. They just check their eligibility, which we saw on the previous slide. They fill out a form on our website, and if they're eligible, they receive instant approval. And so we found in some of our enrollees in like a limbo situation, I guess, where they've submitted applications for other benefits and they're kind of waiting for that process. And so the quick process and minimal barriers of our fair food pricing program has given a few participants really critical support while they've waited for SNAP to come through. So in our pilot, we were fortunate to be able to test out multiple contexts to implement the discount. And we will look briefly at each of these, but the trajectory of the pilot was a phased rollout. So we continued our initial partnership with the Hub on the Hill in the late fall of 2020. And then we had sort of 2 additional phases where at the start of the summer in 2021, we introduced them to farmers markets. And then at the end of the summer, we introduced it into a storefront. And then we also had a season-long farm share, which is our fair share I've been mentioning, which is a bit of a unique context in relation to these other ones. So our first context was a food hub, an online marketplace in partnership with the Hub on the Hill, which has been a huge partner for us. And then given that grocery shopping quickly became a remote activity in the pandemic, the opportunity to connect fair food pricing participants to online ordering was huge. I should note as well, though, we did offer phone ordering through our office for those who had barriers related to internet access or digital literacy. So that's one way kind of AdkAction through their program continues to offer these other sort of support mechanisms to our partners in the program. The Hub on the Hill with online ordering also had home delivery. And this is an absolute asset in this model. As you can see here, the Hub on the Hill covers a large geographic area, which helped the program have farther reach than it first looks based on our vendor map in the previous slide. And while we've been working to bring SNAP online, an accessibility solution in the interim was that the Hub accepted SNAP on delivery. So participants could still place orders using their fair food pricing discount, and then SNAP users could pay at the door when they received their delivery. And so in this context, we were operating the discount in a digital manner. So when fair food pricing participants enrolled in our program, we had a little bit of a back-end process where they would have an online account created for the Hub. And so once they logged in, that unique account would allow them to unlock the discount and see it automatically applied to the items for purchase. And then here as well, we worked with the Hub to leverage other nutrition incentive programs like SNAP and Double Up Food Bucks, so the food access tools can all work together. In the summer of 2021, we partnered with the Osceola Valley Grange Cooperative to introduce fair food pricing to Saranac Lake and Lake Placid farmers markets. And here in this context, we rolled out a paper coupon. And then a huge benefit of working with the farmers markets is that it helped open access to multiple vendors. So nearly 20 vendors participated in fair food pricing through the markets. So the reach is farther, even though technically the market is recognizing the program as a single vendor location. And AdkAction was also on site each week to support SNAP and Double Up Food Bucks, the latter of which also launched at the summer markets for their first season that year. So that was exciting to be a part of. And if you were on the Adirondack harvest session yesterday, you also heard a bit about this as well. And so our partnership together was really important in supporting these food access tools and navigation of them at the markets. And again, in reference to the food access tools, it's really important to leverage these and recognize, though, that alone, they may not necessarily make local foods at the markets affordable, even if those food dollars can be used there. The third phase of our pilot rollout was in the late summer of 2021. And this is when we onboarded the Keystone Pharmacy as our first storefront partner. And so we've got the Keystone Pharmacy, their logo is here. They're a medical pharmacy with a PH, but they actually were our partner in developing our pharmacy project model, which is pharmacy with an F. So where we support the integration of a farm stand into an existing storefront. And this is primarily, trying to bring food to towns where there is no grocery store. So we developed that model with them as our first partner, and it just sort of worked out in our favor pun-wise that the existing business was a medical pharmacy. So sometimes we're talking about pharmacy and it's F and it's PH. But here we also used a paper coupon to start and supported food access tools. So SNAP and Double Up Food Bucks. The Keystone Pharmacy was already a vendor for those two, and we supported kind of the integration of being able to use all three. One unique challenge here was that non-local products were also sold, and the store did have to configure a discount code specifically for fair food pricing in their POS system. So we worked with staff to be trained on those pieces for kind of the unique situations in their storefront context. Okay, and again, the last context was our farm share program, and we're actually going to skip that for now because we'll go into a little bit more deeply later. Okay, so in this first pilot period, we enrolled more than 200 households in the program, and our participants had incredible variation in their profiles. But in terms of who was in the program, we had a lot of seniors, we had a lot of families with children, single parents, grandparents raising grandchildren, multiple families with special needs children, and honestly, a number of individuals sharing that they had various health issues. So one person had been hospitalized with a collapsed lung for a month and a half, and then once they were released, they couldn't work. Multiple households had cancer and were traveling to Burlington or Boston, and so that is, a really financially difficult situation to be in as well. Others with terminal mesothelioma, diabetes, Parkinson's, stroke patients. And so I mentioned this all just to sort of like bring it as well for to acknowledge like food as medicine and just people need and want nourishing food and the connection between those two. Our Fair Food Pricing Fund provided more than $40,000 in food subsidies this first pilot year, and that amounted to more than $130,000 in purchasing power for low-income community members, and the equivalent of monies directly into our local food economy. So about our participant experiences, we've heard from our participants repeatedly what a huge help this has been, and with an emphasis on the appreciation for being able to buy local and healthy food. Existing programs don't always let you buy the best food, and even if it is an option, the choice may not be there when your food dollars have to stretch so far. I like this selected quote here, and this participant really highlights that, this sort of needing to maximize food dollars by explaining it. And the quote actually continues to say that, for example, staples I used to buy at Aldi's, I can now buy for a comparative cost through Home on the Hill. So we've heard multiple times from SNAP users as well that their SNAP often runs out before the end of the month, but the fair food pricing discount is helping them to stretch it out and make it last. And I would say one of the major criticisms from participants we've had is that the program's not yet widely available. And so that in a way is positive, that people really want it to expand and be able to take advantage of it more frequently. From the perspective of the vendor experience, this first year was really oriented toward the satisfaction of serving the community and enabling customers to buy their product who normally couldn't. At this scale and like our small pilot, the financial benefit was not the largest driver in income for most of our vendor partners. Yeah, 100% of the vendors we worked with reported being very interested in being fair food pricing vendors to attract more low-income customers to their businesses. So they love the concept and they're willing and wanting to work with us to make this successful and impactful for all. So we're really excited to be working with our local farmers. In terms of challenges and opportunities, there's a lot to be learned in this pilot. Unique challenges that varied by partner context and partner capacity. This again is a little bit pointing to the unique situation of the pharmacy having to pay special attention to their POS system. And so there were various challenges within each context that wasn't a challenge across the board. And so we were on our toes to pay attention to each of those and help troubleshoot as they came up. But this kind of points to like, we're really prioritizing making this as simple as possible. So there isn't a burden on vendors and they can easily implement it. And if they're new staff, it's not a problem to train them. We're looking for that sweet spot that will really bring these prices in line with what people would pay at other locations. And we're actually, based on feedback, working on a 50% discount rather than a 30% one as the base. And that number is really easy for vendors to cut in half, and 30% can be a weird number to do math and calculations, but that's the direction that we're headed in. And again, we're really intent on leveraging existing food tools, but they all operate in different ways. So really considering how can we make this work in conjunction to maximize impact, both for participant power, but also funneling food dollars into our local economy, because we really should harness kind of these existing food programs that are out there and bring those funds into our local food economy. And so as you saw some of our paper coupon images, we really wanted to get started quickly, given that there was an immediate need for this. So we opted to launch with a low-tech option. So it's a little more behind the scenes management to oversee coupon distribution, tracking, and reimbursement. But there are definitely tech solutions and efficiencies to really help us scale up. And scaling up, we're looking at in terms of vendor and participant numbers, but also the locations of vendors. So this year, we have been working hard to digitize the system and pilot a new technology, which is really exciting. We've partnered with Red Rose, which is used widely in international aid contexts for cash distribution, and implementing this technology will really help a lot with efficiency in subsidy distribution, the process for reimbursing vendors, and tracking use across all of our participating vendors. And it will just sort of all be within a centralized management system. So there's really a lot of potential here, and we're really excited to be working on that. And so additionally, we have a goal. We want to increase our vendors, and having a digital system will really help us to do that more easily. So rather than having to be on site to accept a coupon through the app, a vendor could easily participate regardless of their location. And if they're participating at multiple markets, or if they're in their farm stand, it will really open that door. And so we do occasionally have participants enroll who aren't near one of our pilot vendors yet, and they don't live on the Hub in the Hills delivery route. And so at this scale, the program is not yet truly accessible across our coverage area. So following the digital rollout and the opportunity to readily engage vendors throughout the region, this is really going to, again, open up those doors to increase participant and outreach enrollment as well. And for those who are farmers or local vendors, we will be releasing a vendor interest form soon. So that will be on our website for people who might be interested. We'll definitely have more information about how to engage and participate. Okay, so now to Fair Share. I am really excited to speak about this, as it became a really successful facet of the fair food pricing program. And I truly just loved launching it. We hadn't planned on a farm share context in the fair food pricing program, but sort of a confluence of events made it happen really organically. And so we sprung into action to bring it to life on a short timeline. So some of those things are like, we had a donor who was signing up for their farm share and reached out to just with the idea of how could we make farm shares more accessible. And at the same time, Tangaroot Farm wanted to get their shares to low-income folks, and we're looking for help identifying families. And then thirdly, Jess and Yuri from White Rainbow Farm had recently purchased their farm and were entering their first share season. And they had reached out to us to explore how their farm could be of service to the community and opportunities to partner with us. So it was all really seamless in one of those situations where, everything's just kind of pointing you in a certain direction. And so while we're doing a lot of behind the scenes work to digitize and ramp up their fair food pricing program, pulling in testing and focus groups and that sort, the model of the CSA is allowing us to forge ahead at this moment. And as farms are in their membership signups currently, there are a lot of really active pieces right now, and a lot of exciting things to explore. So the Fair Share is a CSA farm share, or community supported agriculture. So if people aren't familiar with it, the model is where community members buy a farm subscription ahead of the growing season. And then they get a weekly share throughout the harvest, so usually around June through October. And the model is really important to farmers when a lot of costs are associated with planting, but there really isn't income coming in from selling. So it's also really about community buy-in. So you pay upfront and you take on the risk of the season. And if there's a drought or a nasty pest that destroys crops, you get less produce. But if there's a wildly abundant harvest, you reap that with the farmer and you would get more produce in your share weekly. So, and then of course, as is in the name, there's a community aspect, and that really can't be emphasized enough, where you know your farmer and you know where your food is coming from and how it's grown. That being said, CSAs, however, require a lump sum payment, which is a significant barrier. And for low-income families, this can be really difficult to put this much money up front, especially when there may be competing priorities, or, you fundamentally don't have that much money at one time. So this upfront cost makes this kind of completely not within the realm of possibility for a number of community members. And then accessibility. Delivery is often available with farm shares, and again, as we've witnessed in COVID and in our rural area, delivery is a powerful solution to accessibility barriers. So again, as I mentioned, we partnered with Tangaroot Farm and White Rainbow Regenerative Yoga Farm in this pilot. We did offer a full subsidy, or 100% discount, which varied from how we're implementing it in other contexts. And this was for a few reasons. And the first was that, again, Kangaroo actually donated their shares. So they really wanted to get their food to community members who needed it. And I do want to acknowledge that a number of farms offer sliding scales or are willing to accept payments throughout the season for those who need that kind of payment plan in order to afford their share. And that can be out on a please reach out basis. And so sometimes that could be a hurdle for people to do that. And so one value of the Fair Share program is that we're acting as this intermediary space. So we have already identified families when they participate in Fair Share. In the farm share, there's no distinction at pickup or drop off that they're not a regular, quote unquote, regular CSA member. And then we're trying, hopefully, to lift an administrative burden from the farmers by kind of doing this legwork to identify and enroll folks. So, and then another reason we opted for free shares was that a number of our participants were not familiar with the CSA model. And it can definitely come with an adjustment period. So we felt it was important to provide completely free of charge so that the program would be as accessible as possible. And then with regards to home delivery was built into Tangaroot's farm model. And for White Rainbow, we primarily recruited near the farm and had families who were able to pick up on site. And there were actually a few households who ended up not being able to pick up throughout the season. So we did add delivery for them. And it was interesting to see these two models in practice at the same time, as we know delivery can be really critical, but at the same time, really amazing things happen with the relationships for those who picked up at White Rainbow. But I'll leave that and let Jess to speak to that more if she would like to share some of her interactions. So we had 23 households enrolled, and so this amounted to 75 individuals. And within those households, a third of the participants were children. So that's another important aspect to food insecurity, is really looking within that and understanding food insecurity among children. Again, this was for 20 weeks, which is consistent access. And so really this means there was guaranteed food for an extended period of time. And food insecure families can experience a lot of anxiety around future food and whether they'll have it, where it will come from. And there are absolutely correlations between food insecurity and mental health issues. So the CSA model is something that can alleviate that for some time. And so 60% of the households that were participating in this first pilot were also SNAP users. And one important thing with SNAP is there are some limits to how you can use it, and you can't make future payments with it. So if a family relies on SNAP to put food on the table, the farm shares aren't accessible if they can't pay with that method. This participant quote really gets at the heart of kind of why this is a meaningful program. It's long, but so I do want to go ahead and read it. For over a decade, we had looked at different CSA shares in the community every growing season and wished we could buy into one, but the large upfront costs and inability to use SNAP benefits to pay prevented us from doing so. This program is so important for the families, the farms, and the community as a whole. Providing equity and access is really huge. My family really is so grateful to have had the opportunity to participate, and we hope there's a way for us now to continue to do so. Thank you so very much to everyone. This program and its goals deeply matter. So along these lines, the most consistent response we heard from participants was that the cost made CSAs inaccessible. Another participant shared, "I've always wanted a CSA, but can never afford one." And aside from that, participants frequently mentioned they just loved having quality produce, knowing where their food came from. The delivery was huge for a lot of participants. And one participant who this was their first share, they said they would recommend it to anyone. So we really had a strong response to that. And it just, the feedback from our participants was incredibly strong. And so from our vendor experience, we had our two farm partners here. Again, being able to deliver to everyone, and White Rainbow was in their first farm business. So it was really really valuable for us as an organization to be able to support a new farm in their first year and help them to succeed. But I'll let us hear again from them directly since we do have them here with us. So challenges and opportunities in relation to the fair share. Again, finding the appropriate discount. So we did go with a full subsidy model, but early feedback from our participants indicates that they would be willing to pay some portion. So really thinking about what's fair, what's appropriate, and recognizing that implementing some fee-based or some contribution from participants would allow us to reach more households by freeing up funding in that manner. But what would it look like in practice? Leveraging food access tools. So there are actually some pilots in the US that do use SNAP for fair shares. So that's absolutely an opportunity for us to look into and learn more about, and ways that might be something we could pursue. Scaling up, both increasing the families, working with more farms, and then future funding. How can we fund this and continue it and make it a sustainable program? Maybe how to tap into existing CSA members for like encouraging that wealth redistribution. And then one other thing that's not listed here, but is exploring non-produce farm shares and how to round out offerings by adding products like meat and eggs. So after our first pilot, this original donor who approached us with the idea to test out a free CSA program asked us what it would take to reach 100 families. So we did some calculations and it came out to about $50,000 to provide that many shares. And in response, they generously offered half the funds with a matching challenge grant. So if we could raise 25,000, they would match it with 25,000. And just about a month ago, we launched a fair share matching campaign, and we had an incredible outpouring of support and met our goal in just over a week, which was amazing. And so we took a step back, reassessed, extended our goalpost, and realized that, you know, we could probably serve 125 families with our capacity, and that would be a good goalpost. So we're excited to be able to serve, you know, nearly more than 4 times as many families as this first pilot. And we are adding a third farm partner with Juniper Hill. And we are still accepting names on our waitlist for participants. So definitely please share that information or sign up yourself. And that information is right on our website. So then, as I mentioned, with us today, we're so grateful to have our 2 fair share farm partners. And again, we did have a participant who was excited to join us, but they unfortunately had an emergency and couldn't be with us today. But I think I did hear the second day of the summit was farmer oriented, so we can go ahead and hone in on that perspective. We do have some Q&A prepared for them, but we'll also check the chat and let the audience steer this conversation. I do want to give space to our farmers to share about their experience and really focus on that. So I'd love to direct that conversation that way, but recognizing there may be questions about fair food pricing, we can put that in the chat. And in case we can't get to everything, I'd be glad to put my email in the chat box and everything. So please feel free to reach out to me. And then with that, I'm going to hand things over to Jennifer Stanton, who's our AmeriCorps Vista, volunteering with AdkAction for a year, and she's going to help us moderate the panel. So Jennifer.
Hi, thank you so much, Kim. That was a lovely presentation, and I'm so glad, and I really want to thank Jess and Adam both for being here today. I know we are running a little bit low on time, but I'm sure we'll make it through. But just glad you guys are here. If we'd like to start off, Jess and Adam, if you'd like to introduce yourselves a little bit more and describe your role or experience in the local food system, just generally, but if you'd like to throw anything in about fair food pricing, you're welcome to. And Adam, your name starts with A, so I'll just have you go first if you don't mind.
That's fine by me. Hi, thank you for having us. This is great. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Jen. So I run Tangleroot Farm. We've been around, we're going into our 9th season. Can you hear me all right? Yeah, okay. We're going into our 9th season, 7th season up here in Essex, New York. And we grow organic veggies. We grow on 2.5 acres, and we put everything through our CSA and wholesale. I believe it was 2020, in the summer of 2020, we had a CSA member leave halfway through the summer. She said, find a family in need to take my share. We did. It felt great. I don't know, it just seemed really important immediately. So going into the 2021 season, I said, we want to give away 15 shares. I have no idea how to find them, the families to take them. So we contacted AdkAction, and they said, that's no problem. And also this might dovetail perfectly into what we're doing anyway. So, and then Kim kind of explained the progression from there. So we love the program. It was phenomenal. I love everything about it. It was so easy for us. So we'll talk more about that later, but yeah, just can't say enough good things. And that's who I am. Hi.
Thanks so much, Adam. Jess?
Hi everybody. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Adam. I'm Jess, and this is Ray. And she just woke up from her nap, so don't mind her grumpy face. But this is our 1-year anniversary of moving here to the North Country today. Yeah, we made it a full year. My husband and I moved here from Houston, Texas, and decided to start this farm. It was already a pre-existing farm, so we didn't really start it. We just kind of took it over. But it's called White Rainbow Regenerative Yoga Farm, and we have a yoga studio on the property. So we offer yoga classes 7 days a week, and then we offered the CSA program for the 20 weeks of the summer, and it was our first whack at farming ever. And you know, our first couple months here in a brand new place where we didn't really know anybody. So more of like word of mouth led us in the direction of Kim and Brittany, who is no longer with the organization. But anyway, it just was like really easy for us and a great way to meet wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. And one of the comments in the previous slide said that, you know, without AdkAction, we would have had 50% less business. And that was definitely from us. So we had reached out looking to just see how we could serve the community in a place where we didn't really know anybody. And they really stepped up and helped us become really grounded here and establish ourselves with a really wonderful network of amazing people who have gone from, you know, complete strangers to now part of our business and are working alongside with us. So it's been really such a pleasure to be a part of this pilot.
Thank you so much, Jess. And I do just want to throw out there, if you do have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat and keep an eye on that too. I know Kim has dropped her email in there, and there are a few other links in there too, if you'd like to sign up for fair food pricing or take a peek at a few other things from AdkAction. But yeah, so the second question we've got is, this was our first year trying this, and we are really excited about the potential, but as our first 2 farm partners, could you tell us what was the most challenging aspect about participating this year, and what was the most rewarding thing about your experience? And feel free to go in the same order as last time we're different.
Okay. No, happy to go. The most rewarding part was getting food to people who don't have access to it normally. A frustration of mine since I've started the farm has been that I grow niche organic veggies, and I absolutely love my customers, but like I'm not even one of them, kind of thing. You know, like if I didn't grow the food, I don't think I could afford the food, and that's been a really hard thing to come to terms with. And so that's just been incredible to be able to well, give more access to people. That's been really important. As far as the most challenging thing, there's been none, literally none. AdkAction took the administrative side of this whole thing, which was the difficult part, you know, finding the families, coordinating that whole thing. And I literally got an email from Kim with a spreadsheet of all the new, I think 15 shares, the addresses to drop them off. and a check in the mail later. And it was seamless. It fit perfectly with our system. Our whole CSA is door-to-door delivery, so there was logistically it was flawless. So I can't say anything was challenging at all. It's been nothing but good.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much, Adam. Jess?
I can totally agree with Adam 100%. The things that I initially anticipated as being challenging are more of the admin, the behind the scenes work that Kim and Jen just knocked out of the park. They take care of everything. They're so very organized. They even showed up to the CSA pickups to make sure things were going really well, and they check in, and they're just amazing, lovely people to bump into every now and again. And there was for us, a challenge of, I guess I could say one thing that was challenging for us was the return. The way we pass out our vegetables is in little recyclable green baskets that everyone who signs up gets a basket, and you bring them back to the farm and we fill them up, and then you take it home and then you bring it back and forth. And one of the things that was challenging that we ran into this year with the deliveries was that, a number of families were not returning their baskets. So there was a little bit of a loss for us in that regard. And it's how do we navigate through the collection or, the loss of these baskets? So there was one challenge there, had nothing really to do with AdkAction. And then the most rewarding part, like Adam said, was being able to get really good food to really great people who would otherwise never really have the opportunity. And for us, it was mentioned in the slideshow as well that farming, it's not really bringing in the big bucks, right? So it's not we can expect lots of money coming in throughout the season. So it's really, really great for us to know that what we're producing is being really, it's being appreciated, it's being enjoyed. And it's also helpful, Adam, you were mentioning too, that sometimes the organic vegetables are just inaccessible for people, whether you're food insecure or not, so for us to be able to be in a position where we're able to get our food and our message out there, it's really, really important for us.
Thank you so much, Jess. And I've got a third question, and then I'm going to pop into the chat real quick. And Kim did answer a little bit more of a technical question about SNAP and POS integration. So make sure to check that out. And the third question, so we typically talk about food access and affordability and food insecurity from the perspective of the consumers. Could you speak to how those relate to you as a farmer, whether that's customer experiences that you've seen with folks, or just anything else you'd like to add?
I'm not sure, actually. As far as, actually, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I want to make sure I answer it right.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talk a lot about food access and affordability and food insecurity from the perspective of the consumer. And could you speak to how those relate to you as a producer or farmer?
Well, as far, I guess there's two sides of it. There's the mission driven side of it, which I kind of touched on already. You don't want, at least, no, I shouldn't say you don't. I don't want to have an exclusive product. I want to feed people that need food. And so that's been a great part of this program. So I did talk about that from the strictly business side of the farm, which is very important too. There's a huge market that we don't have access to, frankly. Living in a rural space, especially, everyone's dispersed, incomes are lower than near cities. And this actually, just from a nickels and dimes perspective, it gives us access to a huge number of people and people that need our food. It marries both of those things really well. It's like I said, it's been kind of perfect.
Thank you, Adam. Jess, anything to add?
I kind of feel like going second was really great for me. So thank you, Adam, because you give all the best answers. I can try and piggyback a little bit off of that, but I think it is really important for us as farmers to be encouraging and offering this sort of this education around food and where it comes from, and where it's going, and what the mission is behind why are we growing organic foods, and why is it important for us to be of service to a community. So there is an element of education, I think, behind all of all of all of it, that I think is really important, and it speaks volumes to be able to offer this education and this information to people who, again, would otherwise not really be exposed to it. And I think that's a really, really important element here in a rural area, that there's a lot of things that, like you mentioned, Adam, if you're not close to the bigger city, you don't really, it doesn't ever really pop up for you. So that's just really special, and really, really grateful that AdkAction has all of their different outlets and everything that they're offering for the community. It's really perfect.
Thanks so much. To pivot a little bit, we've got a question from Mary in the chat, and she said I'm wondering if the farmers or the AdkAction team ran into any barriers with participants not able to utilize everything that they found in their share, or is that education around raw seasonal vegetables a misconception?
I can go ahead and speak to that. I think that's a great question in two parts. We did do one, like it was labeled cooking class, and there were some recipes, but how to unpack your CSA, which was Chef Curtis in our region, which helped kind of look at what was in a CSA and how to kind of outline what will expire first, and using things in the order of operations. So that was one resource we provided, and farms do provide recipes. But I think getting into this sort of like not being able to use everything in their share is like a broad experience of CSA members, not necessarily unique to fair share participants. And I do think kind of this quote on like education about raw seasoned veggies, a misconception of people just need to be educated about how to cook. So that's one thing, and speaking from personal experience, when it gets to zucchini season and I just have 10 zucchinis, like I don't know what to do with that myself. So I think, yeah, it's just something, a natural part of the CSA experience of what do you do with this? And I think in relation to that, it's very important for us to recognize that time is a really important resource, and often people who are financially poor also are time poor. So again, for example, like here in our rural area, if you don't have a car, we know transportation is a barrier. You may be spending extra time waiting for the bus, or going on a long route, or working multiple jobs. And so you're losing a lot of time that it takes in order to do that. So, and Adam and Jess, I don't know if you have other thoughts.
Yeah, I can pop in and just kind of add to that, Mary. Something that ended up happening with us and our farm, we had a really wonderfully abundant season, and there was a lot of conversation about, too much, or what do we do with this? And what ended up being so beautiful was that we had some of our CSA members that were brought to us from the Fair Food Pricing and the Adirondack Action, ended up teaching how to can and pickle vegetables. And we even had one family who was coming to our home for like 3 weeks in a row just to help us fill our cellar with everything, make tomato sauce, and all of this, like a freezer, 3 freezers full of stuff to have for our family, and then for anybody else who was able to be a part of it. So that was really great. And it also offered a really wonderful way for us to connect as a community, and build, a really great network. And for us, that's really, really important.
Adam, anything to add?
Not really. I think that covered it. That is a universal experience in CSAs. And actually, I believe one of the main causes for members to not sign up again is actually too much food. So for CSA producers, that's something to consider. More is not always better. And yeah, there's some universal experiences, whether it's too much or what the hell's a kohlrabi. That's not that's everybody. So no, I think the other two folks nailed it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I think we've got another question from the chat that I'm actively reading right now. Yeah, so Andrea is wondering how farmers participating in the fair food pricing program get reimbursed, and how farmers at the market are keeping track of discounts per coupon. And I can speak to that a little bit, as I was one of the folks going to the farmers market, and I got to meet two of the AmeriCorps Vistas with Adirondack Harvest and Cornell Cooperative Extension, and they're also great and played a really big role in helping keep track of this all summer. So I definitely wanted to make sure to highlight them too. But each week at the farmers markets, there is somebody there, and there's also contact information on the back of each coupon. So if you can't find the person to return the coupon, or in the case of the markets that we go to, the SNAP tokens as well, you can mail those right in. And at the end of the month, we send I want to say an emailed invoice and then a mailed check. And we just keep track of it in our own spreadsheet, and we're here too for any farmers that are like, I want to double check this and make sure I have all my records straight. But Kim, is there anything there to add about how farmers get reimbursed with the fair food pricing program?
Yep, AdkAction handles that financial aspect directly, so we send it to the farmers. And again, if in recognition that farmers need funds, and if like a balance exceeds 200, we send a check right away. And additionally, again, sort of things will be really more efficient with this digital system. So we're really looking forward to how that's going to help simplify and streamline those processes. So, we're getting low on time. Jennifer, I don't know if there was maybe a final question you wanted to come to. I don't know if we have time for that, or.
I would say it's a little bit of a lofty question, but I think a good closing one. If we were dreaming about fair share in its perfect form, what would it look like in your eyes? And I would absolutely open this up to the audience as well, and anything that you saw in the presentation. So yeah, Jess and Adam.
Jess, you go first this time.
Cool, thanks. I would say if I were dreaming in what it would look like in its perfect world, I would say we're already there. You've already nailed it. I guess the one way it could be even better would be to let's get more families involved.
That's so great to hear,
Yeah,
Jess. By all means, Adam.
No, sorry. I'm just agreeing. I would say scale it as much as possible with private funding, public funding, whatever can do it. Good. Honestly, like farms have so much access to grant money in general for projects on the farm, and I actually think that money would be better used here. Farmers, earmuffs, don't listen. But I mean, it would come to the farms anyway, but it would go through people that need access to food. I think it's perfect the way it's set up. I just want it bigger.
Thank you so much, Adam. And I just want to say thank you again to Jess, and thank you both for being here today. And I'm glad we made it through.
Thank you, ladies. You did a great job. Adam, nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you to everybody.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to join in on the thanks and thank our wonderful panelists and presenter for this session. And so Kim and Jess and Adam and Jen, thank you very much. I'm now going to turn it over to Josh to give some closing comments for the Food Summit. So over to you, Josh.
Thank you, Celine, and thank you, Jennifer. I feel like that was the perfect question to end the summit on, of this lofty hope for the future. I'll be quick. Thank you all for attending the summit. It's been a great past 2 days, a lot of great conversations, and also a lot of work to be done. Just a reminder that all presentations will be added and archived in the coming weeks to the Food Justice Summit webpage through AHI. If you're interested in the Adirondack Food System Network, feel free to also go to AHI's website, ahihealth.org, and check out the food system and get involved that way. A survey is going to be sent tomorrow out. We would appreciate any feedback, good, bad, suggestions for future summits. As we're thinking about 2023, we'll take that into consideration. And thank you to our keynote sponsor as well, New York State Health Foundation, for helping us provide this. And my last thank you to the unsung heroes of the summit from AHI, Sarah, Andrea, and Nancy, who put this on behind the scenes. Presenters know who they are, but a lot of our participants don't, but they're the ones making sure the Zoom worked through all the frantic moments yesterday and today. So thank you all. And with that, I'll conclude the summit on behalf of the steering committee for the Food System Network. Thank you all, and we'll see you in 2023.